is advised.
Hey everyone, this video is brought to you by Audible. Audible is offering you a free audiobook with a 30-day free trial membership. All you need to do is go to audibletrial.com/BG Unlocked. The link is in the description below, and now enjoy the video. Hey everyone, welcome back to Board Games Unlocked, and today I'm doing a top 10 games that I was wrong about, and this is a positive list. I thought about doing, so basically, what I mean is games that I initially didn't like or thought were bad and have since had a change of heart, and now I think positively of them. I thought about doing a list of games that I thought were good, and then now I don't anymore, and who knows, I might in the future. But this one was definitely an easier list to make out of the two, and I mean, a positive list isn't always a bad thing, but so basically there were games that for one reason or another I didn't like or didn't think they were good, had some issues with, and have now either replayed them or played them with a different player count or tried them again years later, and now I think of them as being really good. So from top to bottom, so 11 with my honorable mention, but 10 to 1 are basically how drastically my opinion of them has changed. These are not necessarily games that I like better, so my number 1 may not be my favorite game out of the 10, but it was the biggest difference of wow, I hate this game to wow, I like it, So let's go ahead and get started with the honorable mention, which is a real-time dice game that, based off of my rating on Board Game Geek, which I try to keep as accurate and up to date as possible, was actually pretty low. And I played it the first time as a 2-player game, and then played it again as a 4-player game. But it was really weird because I played it I don't know. It was weird. So the ranking was low, and the game is Fuse. So Fuse is a real-time dice drafting game where you are reaching in a bag, pulling out dice, and you're trying to roll and get a certain number or a particular color of dice, and trying to basically do math equations to try and defuse a bomb. So for example, you could have a card in front of you that requires a red 4 and a 2 to equal 6. So you need to get these particular dice and hopefully have them roll to be able to get you what you want. But you're working with everyone else at the table, and everyone else is you're drawing a certain number of dice, rolling them, and then everyone could be oh, I need that yellow, or oh, I really need that that black one, and everyone's trying to work together. And then there are a certain number of cards out in the middle, and everyone is once you complete yours, you just still have to decide and grab a new one, and there's different rankings of cards. I really don't know why this was so low. This game is a blast. That's why it's the honorable mention, because I remember I probably had some issue with it because it's very hard. This is in my experience, it's a very difficult game to beat. I mean, it makes sense. Real time, it's dice, and you need you're doing math equations. But in each player count, I've played it with 2, 3, and 4. It's gone over super well. I really like that the event cards that get thrown in, they're it's this game is so intense, and you're so invested with everyone, and if both people need a 2, a red or whatever, and it's oh crap, okay, well hurry up and take it, I can make this one work, and sometimes you can't make any of them work, and there's penalties to that. It's a really fun game, and I believe they made another one similar to it, I think called Flatline, and I haven't played that one, but this one, I like real-time games. This one's a lighter of the real-time that you're just rolling dice and hoping you get what you want. So it's my number 11. This was definitely the lesser of the gap between, hate to love. So that's my number 11, Fuse. My number 10 is it is a cooperative game, but I tend to like it solo. And it's kind of it's very Ameritrashy in a way, called Space Hulk Death Angel. I was Space Death Hulk Angel, which that'd be a pretty cool title. Now, the first time that I played this game, I was very kind of put off by the way that the dice worked and how random that can be. But playing it again, and especially years later, and as a solo game, because the first time I played it was as a 2-player game, because I think it had 2-player rules. as a solo game, it's so much better because you have full control over your lineup. You have full control over whenever your people are dying off, and it's not like as a 2-player game where it's like 2 people control 2 and then the other person controls another 2, and it's like, oh well, my people died, so I guess I'm sitting here. You're in control of the entire squad. You get to manipulate and move them and face them in any direction that you want. You're able to like effectively work on the types of aliens that are coming in, and this game is just thematically really, really neat. It gives a kind of Alien vibe where you're walking through a corridor, actually kind of like Alien 2, where it's like the aliens are coming down the and like the turrets just going down. I really like that this theme is like, it is set in like the Warhammer universe, but that doesn't overly like shroud the theme because I'm not too familiar with that. I just think of like Spartans going down like a corridor and like having to watch each other's flank, and you have to like actually tactfully move one another past each other to be able to effectively use certain of the they're not Spartans but of the warriors. It's such a neat game. And that's one of those things where it's like player count, actually the less players you have the better the game is, and I will never not play this game as a solo game. It just sings whenever it's solo. So, and I mean, it still makes a co-op. You don't lose any of the stress of like where the aliens are coming from, and like when you're trying to advance. It's just, it all stays there, and you're fully invested the entire time. So that's my number 10, Space Hulk Death Angel. My number 9, and this is number 9 mainly because of the game mechanism that it was built around. I was always kind of like against it, and the theme never caught me, and I never played it because of both those reasons. Whenever I was really into like, no, it has to have minis. Well, I'm not like that anymore. Minis are still cool, and I still like Ameritrash games, even though I bitch the entire time through them. But this game is not Ameritrash, and it is 5 Tribes. So 5 Tribes, the reason why I never gave this game a fair shake is because it's built around Mancala. And when you think of actual Mancala, you think of the most bland game that's ever been made, where it's just, okay, I'll take these 5 marbles and go boom, 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 and you're trying to get them into the big, the big slot on the end. And that's just awful. Well, that's how 5 Tribes was always described from Dice Tower, or at that time, I believe, oh god, who was it? It was Tabletop. And I was just like, you know what, I don't like Mancala, so I'm not going to like this. Well, I finally gave it a shot years later, and man, this game is so fantastic. Not that I ever hated 5 Tribes, I just never gave it a shot. So now, like, it's in my top 100 games of all time. It's such a phenomenal, not really point salad, but AP game where you're sitting there like with so many options and so many ways to get points at the end of the game. Because there's set collection to where you can just buy a whole bunch of cards, and you want to get, a collection of each individual ones that's going to get you a bunch of points. The auctioning for your turn order is really crucial because your coins are essentially your points, and you bid those to, determine where you're going to go. So you're essentially giving away victory points. All the colors of the different meeples, they're just going to be radically different, placed. And you're going to have so many options. They all do something different. Whoever has the most yellows get points. The expansions are fantastic as well. With the Artisans of Nakala, they have the mini one, which just adds more Djinns. Then you have the Whims of the Sultan, which add a more area control aspect of the game. The Djinns are really cool and really powerful that you can get. This game just sings with and it's so fun. It's so lighthearted too, because I mean, while it does cause probably the most analysis paralysis ever, because there's really no barriers. Like, it's just, hey, you just grab any one of these tiles and move them, but there's strict rules of how you have to move them. Because whatever you pick up, you have to move to, like, the final meeple has to land on a spot that has the same color. So you pick up that group and then you do the action. This game is just so well done, and like, I'm really glad I gave it a shot. And it's kind of one of the pinnacles of games where I no longer, like, I'll try any game. I'm not going to go out and buy any game because I still really look at, like, theming, and I look at art and mechanics and things like that. But, so if I read about it or look at it and it doesn't sound like it's going to interest me, I'm not going to buy it. But like I would if someone's like, hey, because a good example is like, hey, do you want to play Concordia? Well, that game looks like shit, but I would definitely give it a shot. So it has elevated my way of thinking in a way. So that's my number 9, Five Tribes. My number 8 is a card drafting game that the very first time I played it, I felt it was, well, I technically played it at Gen Con, and then I bought it and then played it at home, felt it was broken, and then wasn't going to play it again, but then I did play it again, and I was like, no, this is actually a really good card drafting game called Paper Tales. So Paper Tales, my initial qualm with it, and I don't remember the specific combo, but there was a card that you could draft that basically I remember. It allowed you to upgrade your buildings almost for free, if not for free. And your buildings require you to have quite a bit of resources to upgrade them, and they're worth a lot of points at the end of the game. And the game is very short. So the fact that that was a thing and that like there was really nothing you can do to stop that kind of like I was like, well, that's just clearly unfair because it's not even, no one gets a chance to do that. But that was just kind of more of an unfamiliarity with the game and kind of some certain strategies. That is still a valid strategy to go for, but there's ways that you can actually manipulate. Because in Paper Tales, the theme is so weird. Everything's made out of paper, in the art. And essentially, when you're playing cards, they have timers on them that eventually they're going to degrade and go away. But you can have cards that will allow you to actually take away time tokens so you can keep them alive a lot longer. And I believe that's what he did. He was just able to constantly keep it alive and trigger. Well, whenever you understand that that's in the game, you can actually draft to avoid that. Now, there's nothing stopping him from getting something in his opening hand, but that's just the way it is. And there's combat, and you can fight, or you can gain strength and fight one another and get a bunch of points for that. With the expansion, it adds more locations that you can build, so that increases a amount of strategy to go for. In the original game, you were kind of limited, so I'm glad they added more locations and some more cards. This game is really neat, and who made this? Stronghold? I believe Stronghold made it. I think this game could use for another expansion, similar to the old one, or not to the old one, to the first one. Just add more locations, more cards. Like maybe if people are finding that particular strategy is broken, maybe find a way to counteract it or balance it. Maybe increase a little bit more player interaction, I think would do it some, maybe give it a little bit of a lift. But I was going to sell this game. Like, I was that upset with that type of strategy. But whenever we played it again, I had some really cool combo where I was able to just pull a bunch of time tokens on a particular relic that couldn't die and got a bunch of points for actually aging like my things. And that was really neat. So give Paper Tales a shot. It's a very light card drafting game, kind of similar to Seven Wonders, but nowhere near as many icons. What they do that's actually really fantastic in this is they have, like, if it has a power, like, they have the icons or numbers for the different phases of when that triggers. And I think that's really interesting because so many times you're like, oh god, okay, so we're on phase abilities. Okay, so let's say it's 4. Okay, so everyone now do that. No, you're able to look at the card and see, oh, this is the income because it's number 2, and so this is going to trigger during that phase, and then it's going to do nothing the rest. Very easy to just look at and see when things are going to go off. Really well done. I'm really hoping for another expansion for this. But that's my number 8, Paper Tales. My number 7 was a game I had, oh man, years ago. Like whenever I first started the channel, and this was probably a game that I was in a little over my head with because of just how advanced it was, and then I played it years later. Still, I liked it better then, but still wasn't anything worth, like, for me going like, this game's great. But I've come around to actually think that it's a really solid exploration deck building game, and that is Mage Knight. So, Mage Knight just seemed kind of like one of those games where it's like, what's the point? Almost. It's done in such, in like, that there's kind of scenarios, not really scenarios, but game modes that you're wanting to play. And what makes this game really cool and have kind of turned my head in the positive direction, or my mind in the positive direction, is just how clean and fun this game can be with the card, I guess kind of some slight card drafting, but with the actual deck building of the game. Because what you do is you're a mage, and you are trying to complete certain scenarios out on this modular board. You're trying to traverse the world using your cards that let you move, and then you can spend energy and mana to actually boost it even more. And then you can also, so you're moving, and then you're trying to explore certain lands to be able to gather points or complete an objective that the scenario is providing you. And you can actually play this game solo, or you can play it in a competitive setting with other players. The game is really innovative with how the monsters work. They each have their own particular stats and kind of special abilities that they have, that if you're going to explore certain areas, you might run into those, or you might be able to get some type of artifact or things. The way that the deck works is that, so as you're drawing these cards, they're, like I said, that there's going to have like a top ability and then a bottom ability. That if you are collecting mana, which cards can give you either crystals that you can spend later, or there are dice that you roll that, depending on day or night, they will give you, it's like mana in the air, and that's also very thematic that I enjoy. And those are just one time you can spend, I'm using this move that lets me move 2, but if I spend that green mana, it's going to let me move 4, and I really need to move 4 right now. And you can just do all these really cool combos. You can spend your own cards, so you have hand management to boost your abilities. It's just, and whenever you take damage, whenever you're fighting, you don't have like a health pool. You just take wound cards that get put into your deck, and now all that does is clog up your hand. So you want to find ways to actually heal yourself. This game is really neat. I feel like that what would have made it a little bit easier is because this was always described as like a gamer's game because of the different stats of each individual monster that you're fighting. Because I feel like that's the more complicated part. The different types of terrain also have their own rules. I feel like that this could have been done in a more streamlined way with the scenarios, because it just seems like that there's different modes. I feel like that they could have added more, here's more objectives, and kind of like a scenario book would have done it wonders. And I haven't ever played the expansions. I believe there were 2, and I never touched those, so maybe that's what they did. I know that they've released kind of like a big box set of Mage Knight, and as a solo game, I can see this game being really, really good. I only ever played it as a 2-player game, and like over time, because of my love for certain games, and then my tastes have now changed to where I'm able, and my experience has grown with these types of games, that I can actually play it, understand it, and strategically appreciate everything about it. So that's my number 7, Mage Knight. My number 6 is actually one of the games that I've done a series for. I have not done a run-through for any of these games. Interesting. I've done a run-through for this one, though. I've actually done a series for this in the past, and that is Arcadia Quest. So you might be thinking, what? Arcadia Quest? You hate that game. And I always give Brad, he's the guy who does a lot of top 10s with me, I always give him shit because he talks about it very highly. And here's the thing. Whenever you do a series, when I do a board game series, I like to get those videos up in a timely manner, and sometimes that doesn't always happen. And for this one, I think I was just so stressed of trying to get all 6 episodes up that I was kind of rushing and kind of forcing us to play it, which soured the experience. We weren't able to really enjoy our heroes. We weren't able to really enjoy the scenarios. It really felt like we were just, going with the flow. And I think that hurt the game more than actually the game itself. Because in Arcadia Quest, you run a guild of 3 people, 3 draftable people. And they all have their own special abilities and unique quirks. And you play a scenario. And in the scenario, you have a PvE, person versus environment objective, and you have a PvP, person versus person. And so you have to complete 3 objectives, and one of them has to be a PvP. And all the PvP is like, hey, you have to kill someone in another person's guild. And then the other objectives are scenario specific, which is really neat. Hey, kill the big giant troll that's guarding, or get a treasure, or things like that. And what kind of irritated me about this game was that as we went on, some people were doing worse than others, and it kind of like forced you to kind of just be bottlenecked to fight one another, and you couldn't really enjoy the scenario. Now, going back and thinking of Arcadia Quest, I actually think it's a really fun idea. Like, it encourages, player versus player, and it is very heavy on dice. But you are able, through scenarios, get, upgrades and get treasures and get coins and things to purchase them so that you can build, each of them, as their own person. Now, I think 3 people is a little much in our campaign. It felt like everyone had 2 people that were really good and 1 person that was just kind of there. So I believe Starcadia Quest actually reduced it to where you only have 2 people, which I think is a lot more manageable. But this was really cool. It was a very short campaign. Like, who you get as heroes, like, can drastically change how you're gonna play the campaign. And whoever won that particular scenario could pick the next one, and that's going to, they might get a benefit because they won the last one because they're connected in some way. But ultimately, what it comes down to is that whoever kills the final boss at the very end is the one who won. So I think Arcadia Quest is definitely lightened up. If someone were to ask me to play it, I would definitely jump in. In fact, I did for Inferno. I thought Inferno was pretty neat as a theme. So it is definitely lightened up for me. I won't own it again just because I don't feel the need to, but I definitely think that it's a much better game than I initially thought. And I enjoy it. I think it does give you your guild, satisfaction, your guild building, your hero building, and there's a lot of really cool combos that you can get and upgrades for people. And the scenarios are unique and fun, and the game is pretty streamlined. So I do like Arcadia Quest, and that's my number 6. My number 5, this one's a weird one, because I appreciated the game and hated the campaign idea for it. And that is Near and Far. So Near and Far, by the way, for the record, I love. But if you go back and watch my discussion for it, I felt that it had some issues. And that was mainly because, once again, the idea of the campaign. So this time, it wasn't like the same thing with Arcadia Quest where we were rushing to get it done. It was that the way the campaign worked was, it was just whoever won, whoever had the most points by the end of 10 games, which is just horrible. Like, that's just horrible. Because what happens in this game is Near and Far is kind of like a race. In Above and Below, you are able to go on adventures, manage your resources, and then collect a bunch of points by the end of the game. But no one's racing because it's on a timer. Like, there's a specific number of rounds. In Near and Far, the game ends when someone plays their last tent. And what this kind of did, well, we felt like, okay, well, the very first game of Near and Far we loved. We were sitting there with the exploration and like actually going to the books to have our own encounters and going back to town and, spending money on some cool upgrades, going to the mine every now and then, hiring some people so we can have these encounters, get these neat keywords, upgrade kind of our people, have our own specific story that's going on. But like, what happened was once we found out, it's whoever gets the most points, it's like, okay, I don't give a shit about the story. I just care about the trade routes. I care about the cards in my hand, and I'm just trying to bull rush, and I just want to fight those things, like the things in the stack, and just go through that as quickly as possible, but like go to the mine, just burn out, and then just try and end the game as quickly as possible and have the most points. And that's what every game in the campaign turned out to be. Well, that's horrible. And you might be wondering, well, why is this on the game that you were wrong about? Because Near and Far is a fantastic game. The first experience of actually exploring the land, and like they did a little bit better with Above and Below, where in Above and Below the stories you got were just little snippets, and that was it. In Above and Below, or in Near and Far, your story can actually carry. You can get keywords, you can get side quests that allow you to, hey, maybe on the next map, if you run in and you have this particular keyword, you can do that new type of story. If you have this side quest you can go on, then you can get an objective. And that was what the game was, what felt like it needed to be about, and that's what we did the first time. So after we quit the campaign, I didn't play it for a while, but then I picked it up again, played it with 2 other people, and we just played one of the the regular ones where you actually pick like a named hero and they have a specific story about them. The one we did with the campaign was the one where you name your own character and you build your own kind of campaign. Either way is fine, but we played it in a way that it was like the first time I played Near and Far, and that's kind of what you have to do. The single kind of solo, and you can do the campaign, I guess. Just don't treat it like one. Just have fun, and that's what we did is we played it and had fun with just, oh yeah, let's go explore, let's go to these stories. Yeah, obviously you're still trying to get the most points and complete the inventions in your hand and lay out your tents because that's going to help you move faster anyway. And then the expansion with the Amber Mines actually changed the way the mines work, so it wasn't just rush there and just start placing just for fuck, I guess. It really sings, and after objectively looking at both Near and Far and Above and Below, which I think are both fantastic games, I think Near and Far does the story element a little bit more. So it's kind of like, I like the story of Near and Far and the gameplay surrounding that better, but I like the gameplay of Above and Below a little bit better. So they're kind of tied for me, but it's like, I mean, they both work. I mean, people are going to naturally compare them, but I think Near and Far is kind of superior to Above and Below at this point. And yeah, so that's why there's a big gap. It's kind of in the middle because I loved it the first time I played it, hated it like the next 4 times, and then loved it again the last time I played it. And it's kind of like, okay, so that's how you have to play this, and at least that's how I have to play it as solo sessions alone and just enjoy the story while also still trying to complete, then try and just bum rush for trade routes and points because you're missing out on the magic of the game. So that's my number 5, Near and Far. My number 4 is also a weird one. And the reason why it's so up high on this list is because if I've sold a game, I typically will not buy it again. And I've done it twice. I've done this twice now. One with the others, and which I sold again. And then one with this one. And this is Through the Ages, A New Story of Civilization. One of the reasons why I bought this is because there is a new expansion that'll be coming out at some point. But when I did a series for this, not a series, it was kind of a 3-parter game with 4 people. Horrible idea. That game is so long with 4. But my idea was, okay, well, this game is good. This game is a really good Civilization game. Tapestry, take note. And I was like, why would I play this when I could play Civilization on the PC? Well, and that still holds true. Like, the game as a 4-player game is so overly long. I believe all 3 of those parts were about 2.5 hours each. So it was essentially like a 7-8 hour game. And by the end of it, it was just so, like, we were just so done. I might do this again. I might take that down and redo this as a 2-player game because I've heard that it's better at 2. You kind of miss out on the war and stuff, but that's, I mean, beside the point. That didn't really do much. But I objectively looked at it, and it's such a good game. It is so mechanically sound in the way that you organize, the way that your government is run, which gives you certain actions. Like it can give you more, civil actions or political or military actions. So that's going to denote the way you're going to go. I like the exploration. It does that really well. It does culture really well. It does the city building really well. I really like the idea of the what do they call them? Well, wonders you can build, which increase different aspects of your civilization. But also they're not called inventors, but the minds, the people that you can get. That's like, hey, I have Albert Einstein, and he lets me do this particular thing. It's so ingrained in a civilization type theme that you kind of tell your own story as you're progressing. You can have a very democratic or democracy type government, which is going to basically tell you how you're going to structure and play your game, get more action, civil actions, which lets you do a lot of stuff. Or you can go very heavy in military, which is a huge thing, because if you fight people, then you get a bunch of points for that because you go up on the track. Like, I think, because I played this as a 2-player game a long time ago, and then I was like, oh, I'll try it with 4, but I think the 3-part series just burned. Like, it just gave, like put a bad taste in my mouth that I was like, I'll just play Civilization. And turns out I still don't play Civilization. So I like it. Don't get me wrong. I like it on the PC. But I think at the end of the day, I would kind of rather play a board game of this than Civilization. They're both good, but I don't know. It just does a fantastic job at what it's aiming to do, and I think the player count is kind of what initially killed it for me. But since then, I went out and got it again because I was like, that is so good. And I have a friend Josh, who's in a lot of my other videos. He loves Civ games, and I'm like, okay, perfect. 2-player game. That's where I hear it's better, and I'll play with someone who also loves Civ games because some of my other friends, they're not too into that, and they might not like it. So I think I'll have a really good opportunity to give this game another shot years later and probably do it for the channel. So that is my number 4, Through the Ages. My number 3 is a game I hated mainly because of the type of game it is. This is going to sound weird. And the group I played it with. And that is Vast: The Crystal Caverns. So initially, and here's the thing. So let me talk about the reason I hate it because of the way the game is. And this is an asymmetrical game. And the first time you are playing it, it's going to feel extremely either unbalanced or difficult, because this is one of the first times I ever played an asymmetrical game like this, where everyone has their own thing about them, that nothing is similar between the players. And in Vast, so like I said, everyone has their own objective, so you can't really help one another if someone's confused, because it's if someone's playing the dragon, I'm playing the goblins, and they're like, I don't really understand my thing. It's like, all right, here's the rule book. I don't know how your faction plays, so that was the first time we played it. And then the other time was the group that I had initially played it with. It's not a group I even play with anymore. There was just a lot of weird tension, so that was just also a problem. But I'd recently played Vast. I had purchased it again, and I was like, I'll give it another shot. I gave it another shot because Root is one of the best games I've ever played. It's such a fantastic asymmetrical war game. And I think real quick why Root is so fantastic is because it has the asymmetry, but everyone has the same goal. Everyone is okay, first 1 to 30 points, who can do that better with their particular faction? That's what makes it great. Whereas Vast was, okay, well, the knight has to kill the dragon has to wake up and escape, the goblins have to kill the knight, and the cave has to kill everyone. And so everyone's just trying to win in a completely different way. But anyway, so I played Vast again with people who have played Root, so they understood the asymmetry part, and then they also we were also able to play the game correctly. And I always thought the dragon was OP, but there was always at some point someone was really close to victory. I was playing the knight, and actually just by sheer happenstance of where I was to where the dragon was trying to get, literally by the end of the game, it was either I need to be able to move and I need to hit you and that will kill you, or next turn you will escape. Because the goblin doesn't do anything, because it was me, the goblin, and then the dragon in turn order, and then the cave. And I'm like, well, if I don't win, if I don't kill you, then the goblin can't stop you, and I don't think the goblin was close enough to killing me to win at that point. So it's well, it's either me or you. And so that was a really nice tension-filled game. I still prefer Root, and in fact, I still don't quite like Vast all that much. I think that it definitely is a lot better than the first couple times I played, and I can see why a lot of people would like it. We found it to be a little too long for our taste, for kind of what it was, but I'm really interested to try. I really kind of want to try the Haunted Manor, see if that's been streamlined in any way, because that came out after Root. So I wonder if they learned kind of from maybe the mistakes of what Vast maybe had complaints about, and then the significant success of Root to their new Vast game. Because I thought it was just an expansion. So I might have to give that a shot, because I think the Vast system is cool. I like that idea of everyone having a unique winning objective, because otherwise it can't be if the if I'm gonna win as the knight, well the cave can't sabotage me to try and stop me from winning. It's so everyone has to be at their best, at their best game. So I think that Vast is a really cool idea. It definitely revolutionized asymmetrical gaming and led to their successful Root game. And I think it's really cool. Now, the reason why you might be thinking why it's at number 3 is because I hated it. I hated Vast. I thought it was super broken, unbalanced, game that I was like, I'll never play this again. And then, I mean, Root, like I said, was so phenomenal that I'm like, maybe I was wrong about Vast. And I went in, and my initial thoughts for it were wrong. Like, so that it just drastically changed it. That if someone were to ask me to play Vast, I definitely would. Whereas prior to Root, I'd be like, if you ever talk to me again, I'm just gonna call the police, because how dare you ask me to play that game. So that's my number 3, Vast: The Crystal Caverns. My number 2. I sang my hate for this game for so long, but it was only because I only played it as a 2-player game, and this game is kind of bad as a 2-player game, and that is Champions of Midgard. So, for the longest time, Brad, once again, would just talk, everyone would talk about how great this game is, and I'm like, no, this game sucks, it's awful. And like, he was always like, look, play it as more than 2 and you will change your mind. And I'm like, fine. So he let me borrow his copy, and then I played it as a 3-player game. And yeah, this game is phenomenal. This game is so good. Well, phenomenal might be a strong word, but this game is really good. And the reason why I hated it for the longest time was the troll mechanic, which I'm still not a fan of. But as in a 2-player game, you basically, when someone goes to the troll and they fight it, then they give a blame token to the other player. This is only in a 2-player game. Well, those blame tokens, like, if someone's constantly going to the troll, like, then that means that they're going to keep gaining blame, and those blame tokens add up to a lot of negative points, especially in a 1v1 game. Like, -10 or even -20 is huge. So basically what it did was, okay, I go there, like, if I'm first player, then it's like, okay, well, then I'll just go to the troll to ensure I'm going to give you blame. Well, I mean, they could stop, they could go and grab the first player token for me and do the exact same thing, but that's just awful. That's just an awful game. It's like, okay, well, we're not going to fight the monsters or do anything. We're just going to, keep fighting the troll and passing blame on. So that would just make it an awful head-to-head blame game. Well, in a 3-player game, that's still there. Like, it doesn't change. Only one person can ever go fight the troll. But I also played it, the last time I played it with 3, I also played it with the expansions. And here's the thing. There's so much mitigation to those blame tokens that it basically nullified it. I think someone had maybe 4 or 5. I had 3 and Kat had 1. And something like that. So it was like a negligible point difference. Like negative points that it didn't even matter, which is what I was always told. In a multiplayer game, everyone probably has like 2, so the points just kind of shift in the same direction, so it doesn't even matter. So that was true. So that kind of ignored. I still hate kind of that only one person can go, and he comes back and he's like, hey, they didn't help. It's like, I couldn't fucking, like, that's so dumb. But I digress. So that wasn't an issue. And the expansions for it, the Valhalla expansion, the Dark Mountain expansion, I can give or take. It adds the archers, which give you more food, which inherently let you go, and you have a easier way to go fight across the sea, so that's kind of neat, but I can give or take that one. But the Valhalla expansion, man, it is a must-have expansion, because in Champions of Midgard, it's a worker placement game mixed with some Ameritrash with the dice. So whenever you go to fight, you roll your dice and you're trying to get successful symbols to be able to surpass the health of the monster you're fighting. So you decide who you're sending, and that's always pretty neat. And the different dice have different results. There's the axe people, the spear people, and the sword people. And you also, with the Valhalla expansion, it adds like berserkers, which have double hits. So that's shield maidens, which add shields, and then the Dark Mountain adds the archers. But you basically take these dice, and when you go to fight, you roll them. Well, in the Valhalla expansion, when your heroes die, or when your warriors die, you get tokens for them. And then at some point, you gather enough tokens, you can buy cards, like upgrades, or endgame points, or some events that allow you spend those tokens, because it's like them fighting in Valhalla, and then you collect those. And that is so cool, because now it's not just I'm gonna fight that, oh great, I rolled like shit, okay, well I wasted my entire last 3 turns collecting these people, now they're gone. Now if they die, yeah, you might not have killed the thing, but ooh, that's a lot of tokens. Ooh, and I can buy that, ooh, and that's gonna let me do. It's just, it takes the sting out of luck. and it does it in such a fantastic way. I want other games with dice to do that. Hey, like, we understand that there's luck, because people like rolling dice. I like rolling dice. But whenever you're trying to do it in a strategy game, and it's like, well, you didn't play better than me, you just rolled better. That's not fair. It takes the sting out of that, and that is a very smart move on their part. So, and there's also, because you might actually succeed. You might sit there and be like, oh, I could kill that thing. And I got the shields to protect myself, but I'm not going to. Like, I'm only one, sword token away from being able to get something over there that I want. Okay, I'll let the sword guy die, and then like, you grab the token, then you can buy it. So you actually have some element of if you want to protect your people or not. In a 3-player game, you just have that much more thought process of where people are going, competition of who's fighting, and it was a really close game. It's fantastic. So that's my number 2. It also adds, the Valhalla thing adds the hero die, the blue die, that gives you like a special ability if you roll a certain thing, and it's unique to the character you're fighting. So that's really cool. So yeah, Valhalla expansion with Champions of Midgard sings the praises of this game. It's fantastic. So that's why it's my number 2, just because hated it, only played it at 2, which was my own fault, and then love it at 3 or more with the Valhalla expansion. So number 2, Champions of Midgard. Now, Champions of Midgard probably would have been my number 1, but one of the reasons why I made this list was because of this number 1. And I think that tends to be the case for like maybe a lot of people's lists. It's like, especially if they're like off the wall, like not top 10 favorite games or something, but like these weird lists, because it's like, oh, yeah, I really think that that's the case. Can I find 9 more games? So my number 1 is a game that made my top 10 games I hate twice. And I've done that list 2 times. And I always hated it for so long because I hated deck construction, and that is Magic the Gathering. This is like, I hated Magic, and it's weird because in high school, when I graduated, we had this thing called Project Graduation, where we would after we actually had the graduation ceremony, we would go to like an event, and it's like a party kind of thing, school sponsored event where we all like have one last hurrah before we never talk to each other again. I learned Magic the Gathering there, and then kind of got hooked, but then had no one to play it with. Well, then when I played Magic I think it was in college, the guy I played it with, he had a bunch of decks, and I didn't have any. But he would hand me decks, and then he would intentionally play decks that were good against the deck he handed me. So I always got my ass kicked, and I always lost, and I hated that. I hated the game, felt it was too luck-driven, hated the stack rule, just everything about it. How much money it costs, it's a money sink. That still hasn't changed. But I don't even remember. Oh, yeah, so then skip 6 years later, and I'm hanging out with some friends, and they were like, oh, we're gonna go to this draft tournament, and I still wanted to hang out with them, and I'm like, oh, well, can I join? They're like, sure. So I went, and it was a draft, and it was for either modern or standard. I can't remember. I don't even remember the set it was for, but I was like, okay, why not? I'm now more familiar with deck building. I really like deck building at this point. Deck construction, maybe Millennium Blades and things like that. It doesn't bother me. I definitely changed a lot since then. If I still hated deck building, I probably wouldn't have this as my number 1. But I then went, and I did okay. I think I played 6 games and went 3-3. I'll take that after not playing, Magic for 5-6 years. I broke even at a local, gaming store draft tournament. I was pretty proud of myself. And that was a lot of fun. So then I was kind of hooked. I was looking up, different cards and decks, and then it started all over again. Well, then I got into Commander, and oh man, Commander is so much fun. I personally think it's the superior form of Magic, but I would be everyone would disagree with me because it's not even an official, it's starting to, and unless I'm wrong, I still don't think it's an official, tournament thing from Wizards of the Coast, but it's probably going to get there. Commander is probably the most popular form of actually tabletop playing, casual gaming. But yeah, it's so fantastic because basically all you do is you pick a commander And then you're like, how can I synergize and make a fantastic deck based around this commander's theme? And you pick any legendary creature, and boom, there you go. Then they started releasing commander sets that I was buying, and then I was building my own, and I built like 6, and 4 of them I believe were pretty good. 2 of them were one of the best that I've played. The other, the other ones, like I had some life gain deck that had like an infinite combo with Sanguine, I think it was like Sanguine Bond and something else, where it's like if I take a damage, then I gain a life, and if I gain a life, I deal a damage, and if I ever then I had a card that let me ping someone so I'd hit myself for 1, and then just boom, then it would just trigger, and then I would just drain everyone and have 900 life. Had a mill deck. That mill was always fun, and I still liked playing mill, but it didn't work in Commander. But I had these 2 decks that were they were rock solid, and they were actually decks that I personally built. One was actually built from a pre-constructed deck, and I just upgraded it, and it was a ramp. It was a Windgrace deck that just ramped, and it was disgusting. And then the other one was from Lady Nahila, Nahila the Blade Blossom, and she was just a ramp token deck that would just infinite combats that would just spawn millions of fucking warriors, and they were solid. They were both 5-color decks. No, Windgrace wasn't, but anyway, so basically I got really into Magic, and I was just loving it, and Commander is so much fun with the negotiation that I still love Magic, and it's in my top 100 games of all time now, so that's why there's a big gap of, top 10 games I hate twice to top 100 games of all time, and I think it's sitting somewhere in the middle of like 40 or 50, so I sold all my cards because the groups I was playing with, like, they moved and we don't play as often, but because Commander doesn't really work well 1v1. But I mean, then I just started making proxies because they don't care. Like, they're like, yeah, you know what, we don't care that you play with proxies. And so one of the best decks I ever made was that I ever played was a friend made it, and it was a Guildgate Child of Alara deck, and I basically just proxied that one because that was the most fun. I've never lost with that. I've lost with the other 2 I built, but not often. But that particular deck I never lost with. So I proxied that one, and I have it now. It's sleeved. Not in the best sleeves, but it's sleeved. So yeah, number 1 is Magic the Gathering. And those are top 10. Those are the games that I was wrong about in a positive light. In some way or another, didn't like them, and now I do. And I will no longer talk negative about them. So that's it, everyone. Let me know what games that you hated that you now like, or games that you initially thought were bad and are now good, in the comments below. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you. Hey everyone, thank you for watching, and I really hope that you enjoyed the video. If you would like to see more of my content, go ahead and click that subscribe button and the bell to be notified whenever I upload any new content. If you feel like supporting the channel, you can go ahead and click that Patreon link to be taken to my Patreon, and any help is truly appreciated. Other than that, stick around for any other run-throughs or reviews or cool top 10s or whatever I feel like putting on. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.